Here to dive into industry trends with leading ETF experts, this is ETF Spotlight with Neena Mishra.
Hello and welcome to ETF Spotlight. I'm your host, Neena Mishra. My guest today is Zacks Senior Stock Strategist, Kevin Cook. We're talking about NVDA today, which is arguably the most important company in the world now. And we'll also talk about some single stock ETFs that investors could use to play NVIDIA's earnings. So Kevin is our in-house NVIDIA expert and a long-time bull on the stock. Kevin, welcome back.
Hey, Neena. What a great time to have this conversation. I'm so glad you asked me. I mean, not only do we have earnings coming up next week, but everybody thinks we're in an AI bubble.
So earlier this week, OpenAI released the new AI model. And I'm sure you watched the event. And the new model was, of course, mind-blowing. And what was interesting is that CTO, Mira, concluded the event by thanking NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang and his company for providing the most advanced GPUs which are powering their technology. And OpenAI, we know that their release of ChatGPT about 1.5 years back or so. So OpenAI is credited with starting the AI boom. And NVIDIA's GPUs made it possible for them, right? And remember, NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang had hand-delivered the first version of the DGX, which he called the world's first AI supercomputer, to OpenAI. So to start off, please talk a little bit about why NVIDIA's GPUs are so important for artificial intelligence applications.
Well, it's just an amazing story. And I didn't even really come across it until late 2016, early 2017, when I realized that what NVIDIA was doing with gaming, the graphics processing units, what we call the GPUs for gaming, was becoming the foundations for machine learning and artificial intelligence. And, so now every chance I get, I talk to parents and teenagers and kids who play video games. I'm like, you play video games? And a lot of these kids, they're playing 2-3 hours a day sometimes. I'm like, you know what makes those graphics so cool? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, that's where artificial intelligence comes from. And everybody's like, whoa, I didn't know that. So I just love to talk about it. And it still seems like, so ChatGPT took the world by storm last year, early 23. And now everybody talks about AI, but they still don't understand what's a neural network, what's a GPU, what's a massively parallel architecture, what's machine learning. And I think the good news is that more young people will get interested in the science and math underneath those great gaming graphics that we've been watching Jensen roll out for decades.
Right, and so NVIDIA held its semi-annual GPU Tech Conference in March, and I saw your note. You said that March 18th will be remembered for years, and you always recommend that readers, investors should go to NVIDIA's website and look at their investor presentations, right? So could you talk about your key takeaways from the latest GTC?
Yeah, so what was, why I say March 18th will be remembered is because Jensen unveiled the latest superpod. And it's called Blackwell, just for short. I'm just going to call it Blackwell because that's what it'll be known by. And I mean, he and his engineers have outdone themselves again. Let's go back 1 year to last May when Nvidia's shares were were they $300 then or something? Let me just take a look real quick. But what happened is, in Nvidia's earnings a year ago, the street wasn't excited. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, they don't realize now that everybody is talking about ChatGPT and NVIDIA GPUs are the best for these large language models. The street doesn't get it. It was underappreciated, undervalued. Even the analysts, they just were not seeing what that earnings call meant. It took 10 days later at the Computex conference in Taiwan, in Taipei, I believe, annual, and that's coming up early June, where Jensen unveiled the GH200. GH stands for Grace Hopper. She was a Navy admiral who is considered one of the foremost inventors of computer programming languages like COBOL. So it not only did at Computex in late May did Jensen unveil the GH200, as a DGX system with dozens of Grace Hopper GPUs, but he also said, "Hey, I can tell you our three biggest customers already: Google, Meta, and Microsoft." And boom, that's when the stock took off last May. And yeah, let me see where the stock was. So I got to go back here. So, okay, so yeah, May 24th, and the stock was at 300, and it went up to 400 instantly. And I said, you know what? You're never going to see 300 again. And now we've had a few moments like that since, where the DGX systems just keep getting better and better. We had one in January, more blowout earnings, and so what the analysts underestimated was that demand. But Jensen told you, if he told you that Google, Microsoft, and Meta were lined up, ready to buy thousands and thousands, if not millions of GPUs to build new large language models, what that told me is the other 997 corporations in the Fortune 1000 would also want to build their own large language models. And we're about to see the same thing happen now with Blackwell. The stock has since March, we've been flipping around 900 here, made a trip below 800. But I think that next week we're going to hear what their guidance is, and the guidance is going to be spectacular, I think, for the demand for these new GB200s is what they're called, Grace Blackwell 200. They have 72 Blackwell GPUs, 36 Grace CPUs, and they're interconnected by this new 5th generation NVLink. And it's just an amazing system. It's orders of magnitude more energy efficient and it's liquid cooled. I mean, it's just an amazing product that all big enterprises are going to be buying.
Right. So they are reporting on the 22nd, and earnings are going to be amazing, no doubt. And I have seen that analysts have been raising their earnings estimates for the company. If you go to NVIDIA quote page on Zacks.com and click on detailed estimates page, you will see those revisions in earnings. And I've also seen that analysts have been raising their price targets for the company as well. And currently, if you look at analyst ratings for NVIDIA, and this is according to the Wall Street Journal quote page for NVIDIA, 54 analysts have either buy or overweight rating on the stock. Only 5 have hold rating, and no one has underweight or sell rating on the stock. So since you follow the stock very closely, is there any analyst or any thesis which impressed you a lot and you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, but I have to go back. I have to go back to 2017. Mark Lepacius, he was with Jefferies, and he just moved. I don't want to misquote where he is now, but he's with a new investment bank. But Mark Lepacius, early on he saw NVIDIA's revenues the biggest segment was gaming, right? But he said, we're going to see a shift here where data center takes over gaming, and now data center dwarfs gaming, right? So once that shift started to occur, even before anybody heard about ChatGPT, and now it's on, and people think it's a bubble, but Nvidia doubled the revenues last year from 30 billion to 60 billion. This year they're going to do at least 75% growth to, let's say 105 billion or more. And then next year's estimates are already at 128 billion or 20% growth. But I've been saying all along, those are just going to keep moving higher. And by 2026, I think they'll be doing 200 billion in revenue, and the stock can continue to go higher and become a $3 trillion company.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So you mentioned the bubble that people talk about, and the bubble being led by Nvidia. But if you look at the valuations, earnings are growing faster than the share price. The stock is up more than 90% year to date, but it is currently trading at around 38.9 times next year's expected earnings. So valuation remains below its 5-year median, as well as those of many other chip stocks, including AMD. So AMD has a forward P multiple of about 48x currently. So you also have a price target on Nvidia, right? Could you talk about your price target and what do you think of the valuation currently?
I'm going to own Nvidia for a long time, so it's I have trimmed some on the way up, and I'm less reluctant to do that. In fact, I just added some leverage, which we'll talk about in a moment. But right now for my Taser trader portfolio, where we hold the stock and we're up over 600% from buying the October 22 lows near 120. I just tell them our target is 1,200, but I think most of my people understand I'm probably not even going to sell at 1,200. So I think long term, this is, the stock's on its way to a 3 trillion market cap. And let me just get an update on where we are here now, around $950 a share, 2.3 trillion. So it has a long growth runway ahead of it. This is not, AI is not a bubble. Machine learning is not a bubble, because enterprises need to automate and they need to use their data. I used to follow a company called Splunk, who you probably know that Cisco bought recently. And Splunk always talked about dark data. And what they mean is that enterprises are collecting just tons of data every day, whether it's from their customers or their machines or their operations or the economy, whatever it is, and the data lies dormant. And so Splunk used to estimate that at least 60% of enterprise's data was dark. It was just in log files and they weren't using it. So what machine learning does is it can go in there and start to organize that data and make it useful and study it and draw insights from it. And so that's where AI inference comes from, because you can't, you can train a large language model to identify, kitten photos or translate French to English, but that's just training. Inference is where you're trying to draw insights from unstandard data that might also be messy.
Yeah, so thanks for explaining training versus inference. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about AMD first, the competition in this space. So currently, Nvidia dominates the AI GPU space. They have about 80%, more than 80% market share. AMD is a distant second, and but their market share will grow slowly in the coming years, probably. And today it was reported that Microsoft will be offering AMD's AI chips to their Azure cloud computing customers.
Yes. Very exciting.
So you own AMD as well in the Taser portfolio. Could you talk a little bit about your outlook on AMD?
So, a couple of things. NVIDIA is the best, but they can't even meet the demand, number one. So you need a competitor, right? It's like, we can't just rely on General Motors to make cars for us or Toyota. You need an alternative. And I think that also there's this concept of what an enterprise would call dissimilar redundancy. What that means is when it comes to software or chips, you don't want to just rely on one vendor, one product, one platform for your business. So you want to have what they call dissimilar redundancy. Can we function, operate, and test and experiment using multiple systems, and in that way be more robust? So for those reasons, I think those are two good reasons to be an investor in AMD. And the one you just mentioned, that Lisa Su is a great CEO too. She's also Taiwanese like Jensen, and she's done amazing things with that company. She also surrounds herself with great engineering talent, right? She doesn't want the spotlight. She just wants smart people building cool things, and they're doing it. They're right there behind Nvidia, and the revenues haven't ramped, but the price differential, I always look at price to sales. I'm not a big EPS guy when it comes to tech companies. I like to look at price to sales because it's the revenue ramps that are indicative of the future. And so while Nvidia can trade over 15 times sales, AMD has always been kept down, 8, 9 times sales, sometimes even cheaper. Like when AMD goes down to 6 times sales, I'm like, you got to buy it here. So those are my reasons for also being an AMD investor as the number 2 in the space.
Awesome. So you had mentioned training chips which are used for training AI models, and we know that NVIDIA's GPUs are unmatched for training those AI models. But there are some experts which say that other chips produced by other companies, including AMD and by Intel as well, they could be used for inference because inference doesn't need very cutting edge chips. But in the latest quarterly results, the last quarterly results, we saw that 40% of NVIDIA's data center revenue came from inference rather than model training. So it seems that as of now, they have a dominant position in the inference market as well. But probably they will face some competition in the coming years in that space. And then you mentioned that NVIDIA's largest customers are Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Meta Platforms. Now, most of the tech giants, including these companies, they are designing their own chips. They will be using NVIDIA's chips as well, because those are the best. But what do you think about competition apart from AMD in the coming years for NVIDIA? Do you expect any demand slowdown for their chips?
I mean, yeah, there's going to be competition. Eventually, Intel is going to figure some stuff out and get better at providing these kinds of solutions. AMD is right there. There are going to be some other companies that can pull it off. But the space is it's only going to become more diverse too. I mean, right now, the thing we haven't talked about yet is this isn't just about like data processing and data modeling and predictions. This is about science and the future of humanity. I mean, if you listen to Jensen sometimes, he is all about this, what these massively parallel architectures can do for a research university, for a research supercomputer, where they're doing drug modeling, studying protein folding, drug discovery, or studying fusion energy, things in physics and biology and genetics. I mean, there's so much goodness happening for humanity in terms of what we can do with AI and machine learning. So I think Jensen would be like, he welcomes all competition because it's only going to make the world and the market better. And at the same time, Jensen and his engineers will be on the bleeding edge. I can't wait to see what NVIDIA is going to do with quantum computing, because they're tinkering behind the scenes, he'll mention it now and then, but they don't really have a product they talk about it. That's another cutting edge area where they'll always be at the forefront of R&D, and the market will just expand for a long time here, I think, because we've got humanity has a lot of big jobs before it in terms of curing disease, colonizing the solar system, and solving poverty. So that's what AI and machine learning and deep learning can do for us.
Right. I totally agree with you. There have been some amazing.
I didn't mention climate. It's like being able to model climate. That's the thing. It's simulation is really, Jensen's big on simulation, and that's what these digital twins are for. Remember, BMW took on a platform to create a digital twin so they could model and design the factory of the future that's going to be fully automated. Well, just about any industry can create simulations for their business. And then if we can simulate scientific things that are extremely huge and complex, like climate, we might learn a thing or two.
Totally agree with you. AI is going to transform not only healthcare, but many other industries as well. And NVIDIA makes the best. They design the best cutting edge chips, which will be used by these industries. So let's talk about your purchase of NVDL. I think you added in April, right? Could you talk about that purchase?
So this is you mean the ETF that's a single stock for Nvidia that has 2 times leverage, right?
Yes.
So as I mentioned, we've had this core position in Nvidia. We've been trading in and out of Nvidia for years, but I made what I thought was like the last great buy, being able to buy near $120 in October of 22. And I've only sold a little bit on the way up here, and I'm reluctant to sell any more of that position. It's up like 650%. So on the last big dip for Nvidia, which was in April, the stock went down to like 750. And I told everybody, once there's a big gap up in Nvidia, either on a new product or massively higher sales and guidance, the stock will not go down and fill that gap. A lot of stock traders are like, the gaps always get filled. I'm like, these gaps are not getting filled. So I said that the last earnings we had was mid-late February. Yeah, so February 21st, the stock had traded back down under 700, and things were so good. It was in another gap up, and we were into new highs at 800. And I said, that gap down to 700 is not going to get filled. So when Nvidia in April had a little bit of a sell-off, a little bit of pessimism, went down to, like 756, I'm like, you got to buy it here. And so instead of just buying the shares outright, I bought this little ETF, NVDL. And I remember the day that I emailed you, because I know about, you're like the Jim Cramer of ETFs. You've got 2,000 ETFs in your head. So I wanted to ask you, which one is the highest quality and most liquid? And you sort of sorted it out for me. And so I picked NVDL, for its AUM, assets under management. And I just bought that thing at, $30. And now it's trading over 40, and I'm going to hold that for a while, and see what happens with that. And I think that's the way anybody can buy the dips in Nvidia. But the thing is I'm not out here speculating with single stock leveraged ETFs, all over the S&P 500. I just did it with Nvidia because I have that much conviction about the company.
So you are a trader, you run a trading service, Kevin, and you watch the market every day, every hour, and that turned out to be such a timely purchase. And totally investors should look to buy on slight sell-off, any opportunity that they can get. And, these earnings events, after these earnings, we normally see big price swings up or down. And for NVIDIA also, because expectations are sky high. So I will not be surprised if we see a small sell-off, or the stock may just go up a lot. But anyway, these ETFs, these single ETFs, can be used as short-term tactical trading tools before or after earnings. So there are two ETFs, two 2X ETFs that investors could look at. And the one that you bought is by GraniteShares. The ticker symbol is NVDL. It is 2X long Nvidia daily ETF.
That was GraniteShares, right? Granite?
Yes. And there's another one by T-Rex, which has a similar strategy. So that ticker symbol is NVDX. This is by T-Rex 2X long Nvidia daily target ETF. This has about 400 million in assets, and the one by GraniteShares has about 2 billion in assets. So if the stock goes down for any reason, if there's some small detail in the earnings or in the guidance that investors do not like, then investors may get an opportunity to buy the stock or the dip. And then there are some inverse ETFs as well, which investors could look if you are worried that the stock may fall after earnings and you already own the stock, you want to hedge your position, then probably you can look at an ETF like 1.25x Nvidia Bear ETF by AXS. The ticker symbol is NVDS. This has about 50 million in assets under management. And investors should remember that these leverage and inverse products, they are not meant for buy and hold investing for most investors. They should be used by professional traders like you, or by investors who very closely monitor their portfolios. Because of daily compounding, their long-term performance can vary a lot from what is their stated goal. Any other closing thought on NVIDIA or single stock ETFs, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think you laid it out good that that there are risks with leverage. This is not, and just because I have extreme conviction about NVIDIA doesn't mean that everybody should go out and buy a leverage ETF. But one more thing I wanted to say about you mentioned the rollout of the new ChatGPT-4. I love the potential for education with this kind of thing. And Sal Khan from Khan Academy?
Yes, I watched his interview on CNBC this morning.
Oh, nice. I didn't know he was. Well, he did a little demo video with his son.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Trigonometry. It was like so cool, and you could see how that could help a kid. And I'm so into this because if I had an idea like this in 2016 before I even knew about ChatGPT, I actually submitted a proposal to the National Science Foundation to build an AI engine that could use AR and VR to customize lessons for kids. Because a lot of people don't know it. I work in finance, but when I was a teenager, I was allergic to algebra. And I had to teach myself probability and statistics in my 30s. And I did it through stories. And I did it through experiences on the trading floor and learning about options. I couldn't do it through textbooks or equations. And so I've always been about creating experiential alternatives for kids to learn math and science. If people want to go to my Twitter feed at Kevin B. Cook, the pinned post at the top of my Twitter feed has